Battlestar Galactica Season 3, Episode 12, Rapture is over, but we have to go fracking down the hatch to talk about BSG Season 3, Episode 12, Rapture. On Down the Hatch, I'm Josh Wigler here on RHAP. We know scripted TV, and we know that we better get out of here before a whole sun explodes on us, Mike Bloom.
Or a gin explodes. No, it was Saeed who exploded on the sub, right?
Yeah,
they just drowned.
No Saeed. There is no Saeed. But there's also no longer a sun orbiting around little algae planet.
Well, I don't think there's a little algae planet anymore either.
Algae planet anymore either. I really do hope they got as much algae off that rock as they were able to before.
I have a feeling, just given the way these storylines come and go on BSG, there will nary be a talk about a food shortage ever again.
You think so? You think we're done with food shortages?
Yeah, I think they're like, remember that there's still people existing? Yeah, well, now we have a better focus. We've got, a next location to get to. Some of our characters might be prophets. We've got a terrible president on board and his ex-girlfriend. We've got other fish to fry, even though there are no fish to fry.
Bunch of fish to fry in this episode, some Cylons to fry, a planet to fry. This is an episode that is explosive on a couple of different levels, including at the South Saturn Delta of this planet, which seems like it was specifically annihilated, Mike.
Oh, no. Yeah. Like the Moe's bar when the asteroid hit?
Yeah. Did it hit directly Moe's Tavern?
Well, it never hit, right? It shriveled up to the size of a chihuahua's head.
Technically, did it still hit, though?
No, it hit the Big Butt Skinner balloon, and then it just landed on the ground.
Phenomenal. Man, when did that happen on Simpsons?
That was season 6, Bart's Comet.
Okay.
To be candid, Josh, I'd rather talk about Bart's Comet than I want to talk about Rapture.
Mike Bloom surprised me about 2 seconds before we hit record by saying, like, I don't know that I loved this one. So cannot wait to talk about why, because I think this is a pretty important episode of the show. Is this, we know that this was the moment that the night fell from the sky upon this planet, but is this when the night comes falling from the sky for Mike Bloom?
When the nightman cometh.
Is the bottom falling out on BSG for Mike Bloom? We will talk about that and so much more here on Down the Hatch, which, of course, you can always write into Down the Hatch, RHAP@gmail.com. Hit subscribe on Down the Hatch wherever you get your pods by searching Battlestar Galactica Down the Hatch. This is effectively part 2 of a part episode. And Mike Bloom might say that this is part 2. Based on how he felt about it. Mike, talk to me.
For me, it's a matter of, look, BSG.
I'm looking.
I've felt so honored and so privileged to get the opportunity to cover this, because it's an opportunity to open my eyes and truly see, wow, in the mid-aughts, when it felt like a bunch of shows were kind of running on the same rails as to how to make a TV product, here was this little engine that could, on the side of Battlestar Galactica, that was trying all these new stuff, that was saying, you think we're going one way, but actually we're going another. We're zigging when we're zagging. And there are these opportune moments, Josh, when you fly too close to the Nova, when you're doused with a bucket of cold water, and you realize sometimes the cold reality that, yes, this is a show that was very new for the mid-2000s. It's also a show from the mid-2000s.
Sure.
And I do feel like what weighs this episode down to me are a few tropey moments that felt like it was kind of resetting back to a norm that I felt wasn't necessary for the show.
Is it the Lee and Kara stuff?
That's a part of it. And I will also say, really, I knew it was coming, but really not a fan of the whole murder mystery, Scream-esque, oh, Deanna spotted one of the final 5, but she's not going to say who it is. She only says you because we want to keep the mystery going. Like, again, I knew it was coming. That was another factor as well. I mean, we could roll the tape back, Josh. I'm pretty sure when you asked me what's going to happen next week, I got at least like 80% of the episode right in terms of what was going to happen.
Isn't that satisfying? You're so plugged in, Mike.
No, I'm a dumbass, Josh. I'm the guy who didn't know it was Hilo on the box art. This is not a good thing for the show if I'm the one who's figuring it out. So I think, if anything, it's more so saying, all right, if this was kind of with a couple of exceptions, we'll talk about it. There are some interesting things to move the ball forward. But I do feel like some of the landing places we left some of these storylines, to me, felt predictable and also a little tropey at the
Sure.
same time. And I'm ready for my, opinion to be changed. And again, there were things within this episode that were enjoyable. But honestly, Josh, this might be one of those rare two-parters where I might have liked part one more than part two.
Love that for you. We love divergent opinions here. I think that this is a really, I like this episode a lot. I don't think it's, one of my all-time favorite episodes, but it has some moments of extreme catharsis, such as Hera's back and we've got Hera, and that's very lovely. I think that the Hilo and Athena stuff is really good. I think it's a great Hilo episode, personally.
Oh yeah, listen, Athena has her own battle to fight, so I'm glad that he gets to represent her unrepressed rage of what the hell, guys?
I feel like as soon as you recognized Hilo on the cover, he's like, all right, well, now I really got to show up and explain to Mike
and change my hair care routine.
It's like, I got to explain to Mike Bloom why I'm worthy of my Blu-ray cover spot, which even haven't seen the whole thing. I still don't think he is. It's unclear to me. However, I think that he has some great stuff in this episode. I think I'm so interested in your take on the final five, and I think that it's a valid point that you raise, and yet I still think there's a lot to speculate on that I hope that we can do here in the episode. And then another reason why I imagine you don't love this episode is because your boy Liadama is a little bit of a chump. Your boy Liadama is sending his wife on a rescue mission to go save his mistress, and then hugs her lovingly at the end. It's some bad looks for Liadama, I think, in this episode. I think your Lee bias is struggling to compute this one.
I mean, what I would say is it's bad looks for 3 out of the 4 of them. It's bad looks for the writers also, frankly, to reset all of this. I think that's what also really pisses me off. Is it felt like we had moved so much, even through the first part of this entire 2-part extravaganza. And then it's we're not there yet.
Word. Yeah.
We still have a season and a half, so let's reset the board. No, we don't need to reset the board. They yelled to the heavens that they love each other, and now it's but I gotta go back to my marriage. Why are we doing this? Why? There's no fertile ground, Josh. The earth has been salted. There is not a crop to be planted. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about Anders and Starbuck. Nobody cares about Dee and Lee. The show has not done anything to build up these relationships as important whatsoever. Why are we deciding to reset back to it?
So you would prefer the season 3 love rhombus? Is that what we call them? Is it a love rhombus?
They're like a rectangle, whatever quadrilateral you want
between
to assign to it.
The Jack, Kate, Juliet, Sawyer stuff beats the Lee, Dee, Sam, Starbuck stuff for you?
I think a little bit. And look, maybe it's one of these things much like in Lost where we can look back even some of that teasing that happened in Dharmaville in the latter part of season 5. And we said, well, listen, the end goal is no matter what, it's going to be Jack and Kate and it's going to be Sawyer and Juliet. So any sort of this, I saw the way you looked at her stuff. It doesn't really matter. You hand wave it. But at least in the moment, to me, it's a rhombus, but God, 2 sides of this are just so flimsy and unsupported. Where it's clear the show is very much priding this one relationship, and it just feels for the sake of, well, we have X amount of episodes to get to that they say, this relationship changed forever a couple episodes ago, but did it though? Because we're just gonna send them right back to their corners.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll unpack that. And we'll talk about so much more that happens in this episode. And when we begin roughly with where we left off. Adama was threatening to nuke the whole situation. The Cylons were like, I think he might nuke us.
And Polly and Sammy and Ronnie.
Yes.
Hopefully Ronnie gets nuked.
Ronnie is gone. We don't talk about Ronnie. We don't talk about is JWoww still out there? JWoww is a pretty good name for a pilot.
Yeah, JWoww's an incredible call sign. Snooki would be the best one though.
Snooki would be the best one. Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
What do you think Snooki means in the Battlestar Galactica universe?
It sounds like the name of now maybe I'm just thinking of Wookiee, of, like, the name of some sort of alien race, but they haven't
Yeah.
really encountered a lot of extraterrestrials in
Not
TNG. It's pretty
really.
much been the Cylons. Like, the algae is the only living organism that's not human or Cylon on the show.
There were like bushels on New Caprica. I feel like there was a tumbleweed or two.
Yeah, that could be the case, and, like, I don't think there's been any pets so far, right? I don't think there have been animals.
We've seen there was a dog. I think there was a dog.
I think there was
There
a
was a
or
dog. There was the
no.
dog bowl.
Oh, yeah, there was the dog bowl. There was the dog on New Caprica. You're
Yeah.
right. That's the only other non-humanoid we've seen on the show.
Yeah. We'll see if there's any algae aliens that are now aboard the Big G.
Oh, that'd be a fun thing to reset, that the algae actually forms into, like, their own, like, "Oh, thank God you let us off that planet. Now we can finally become ourselves."
How is this show going to make it to 4 seasons, Mike, if not for the ever-present threat of the algae monsters?
I feel like even I would have heard, Josh, about the show incorporating algae aliens in
Yeah.
the latter third of its
Yeah.
run, if it truly was a thing.
Yeah, the Al Jazeera. That's
Oh,
not a race.
God.
That's a network. That's a network. That's a network. So Dom is threatening to nuke the site from orbit, and the Cylons to a person are like, "Yo, that's bad. Let's dip." Except for Deanna, who's like, "No, I want my Deannas to go and see the Eye of Jupiter."
Yeah, so
And
this was confusing to me
yeah,
because my assumption up to this point was that the Deanna that was, killing herself over and over again to experience that liminal space between life and death, who's going on this
yes,
entire what would end up being a suicide mission to discover the final five. I thought that was one singular Deanna.
yeah.
I did not realize that all Deannas were apparently in on this plan.
Yes. So I think that what we get from the end of this episode, I think that like there are some base traits among the specific models that just like exist from model to model, right? Like
Mm.
sixes tend to be kind of horny from model to model. The boomers like run really hot and have
Boomers
like
don't know
really,
how to use technology.
they have like really, that's right. They have really hard time signing on to their streaming. They really, really.
They can't turn the motion smoothing off on the hybrid.
Cabals want to be machines. Leo Bins are pretty zealous. I think that
And creepy.
the Deannas, yes, and I think the Simons are doctors, right? When we're like, well, our doctors look, it's like, yeah, it's a bunch of Simons who don't know to like check the belly. You guys need a new doctor line fast. I think that all of the Aaron Doyles are like little like government stooges. And I think that for the Deannas, what we see is that there is this like rebellious streak, this sort of like march to the beat of their own drummer, get the information that they want. There is like an intrepid journalist quality to the Deannas, right? That is very existent in the first time that we ever see her back in season 2, that I think exists across the line, which is why someone who is so fanatically devoted to the idea that we are machines, that we don't have room for emotion and curiosity like this, someone like the Cavill would be very threatened by the Deanna. And so there's a reason why the Cavills would shut down the Deanna's line wide by the end of this episode. So I think like that would be how I would explain it, is that the Deannas are all sort of simpatico to the idea of like, we need to look upon the faces of our makers. Like it's something we got to do at all costs. So this Deanna is on board because it's furthering the mission that she and her line have. And my interpretation is that like the Deanna with Baltar is like Deanna Prime. Like when we're talking about Deanna, really like that's her, is sort of my take on it.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I would have liked to see then maybe a bit more collusion between the Deannas because again, it
Illusions,
seems like
Michael.
yes, Deanna Prime definitely seems to be a zealot in her own right, and it would be interesting to sort of have her commiserate with her fellow models to not make it just seem like it was her and Baltar against the world. But yeah, in this moment, she's unfortunately laying the seed for her own demise as like all the other Cylons are in agreement that, we don't want to nuke the planet. We've come too far. We need the location of Earth. So yes, we will negotiate with terrorists. It is like, Nope.
Nope.
They're not going to shoot at one ship.
She's right. Adama, though, was like armed and ready to go.
Yeah. He got Saul to put the numbers in and everything.
And it almost pushed the button, in which case, like, pushing the button would have been quite bad. As a big departure from Lost. But Adama also doesn't fire all of the nukes at one. Yeah, he does not fire all the missiles at one single ship. He lets the ship go. So Deanna is right. Adama is right that these people would be freaked out. And Deanna is right that Adama wouldn't, go full nuclear Armageddon on a single ship. But I do think an impressive job from Big Bill here. I think Big Bill does a good job using nuclear deterrent. Really works for Big Bill in this episode.
Oh, I mean, the Cylons absolutely eat it in this episode across all manners. Like, the ground effort doesn't work. The air effort doesn't work. Deanna is able to make it to the temple, but basically experiences like a Raiders of the Lost Ark ending, to the point where she is actually shipped away in the container.
I didn't notice her face melting off. Did her face melt off?
I mean, her eyes went white. Like, it was basically her brain melted off. Her brain did melt off by the end of it. And so this is a pretty dang big L for the Cylons in this episode. And it really does begin, to your point, with them accepting Adama's threat and being like, "Oh, okay, well,
yeah.
Sorry,
I don't know what to do about that. Sure, yeah, great." Meanwhile, we have on the ground, we have to continue the tete-a-tete between Lee and Sam.
Which is basically the resolution is like, I'll do it, but I'm not gonna like it.
Well, the solution to it is basically like, I'm gonna call my wife. Yeah. I'll call my wife. And I'll have my wife pick up your wife, and that'll be that. And, like, that's good enough, I guess, for Sam. But this is really shitty, I feel like. I mean, like, I get it, like, that this is probably, like, the best solution, but it just really underlines how bad of a job both Lee and Kara have done about the affair.
Yep.
Because Dee is like, wait, you're ordering me to go pick up your mistress? He's like, yeah.
Can you pick up my mistress from the airport? Her plane got grounded.
Dee, I think, is a real ride or die in this episode.
Oh, well, she helps give Kara a ride so she doesn't die. Yeah, I think she definitely proves how, and maybe it comes from the fact that whether you criticize her about it or not, like you did, Josh, like, she kind of knew what situation she married into. And so this is kind of her swallowing that inevitability, that cold, hard truth of like, yeah, he does love her more than me. So, like, what were you expecting, Dee? This was always going to happen. So, like, be a good soldier and get the job done. And, like, good for her as well, because, yeah, it's a two-person job trying to make their way over to the Raptor, and only she survives it. And she's able to somehow get there, despite the fact that there are Cylons all over the place.
Back aboard the Big G, Hilo and Athena are going to be talking about Hera and how to get Hera back. And Athena has suggested there's only one way. And Hilo's desperate to find some other way. And Athena is like, please do the thing I'm asking you to do. And a very, like, pain-faced Hilo. You recognize his face, right?
Yeah, I do now, especially when it's going through pain. I mean, I like, this is another thing that I saw coming from a mile away, but I was like interested in it, especially. It's so good when Grace Park wakes up in the goo pod and says the line, "They wouldn't let me see my daughter, so my husband shot me."
It's like only on Battlestar Galactica does that like stand for like a big act of love.
Yep, exactly.
Like, Hilo,
if you love something, set it free and put a bullet in her.
And if you really love something, shoot it in the heart and send it back to a Cylon base star. That's what Hilo does. He shoots Athena. She dies instantly. He screams. He's so upset. And then in the very next scene, Adama and Roslyn come to, like, interrogate Hilo. And I love this scene. I love
so cathartic. So cathartic.
I love this scene for so many reasons. I think, like, everybody in this scene is awesome. She could give up a lot of tactical information. He was like, she'll never do that. You trusted her with the uniform. And he's like, it might not be her call. She might not have a choice. And Rosalind says, if this was just like you doing something for your family that only impacted your family, I would say it's extremely brave, but it's impacting more than the family. And the way that Hilo stands up, and you really get, like, You know what I love is when like a TV show or a film really emphasizes the height of the actor, because so many
Mm,
times like Tom Cruise doesn't seem like such a shorty because of who
right.
he's standing next to or who they've made
Well,
like look
listen,
smaller.
you and I are both Survivor fans. This is something that people bring up all the time about like how you imagine somebody stands on the island versus actually seeing them in person, and it
You know,
never matches up.
or even just like anybody on the internet. Like if you saw me in person, dear Hatchling, I know that like from the sound of me and my vibe, I'm like 6'4", but
Exactly.
I'm actually 6'2". So you know, like things really are different IRL versus on screen. Here, Tomo Pennikid's a tall boy, and like you get like the full height of Hilo as he stands up and he proceeds to just like march over to Roslyn, and he's like, you know, if you didn't kidnap my daughter and tell me and my wife that she had died in the first place, we wouldn't be here at all.
Yeah.
And like, that's a great moment that like Adama gets in the middle of, but like in this very like paternal, gentle but firm way, like as
Diplomatic, yeah.
like everybody is Adama's child. Like he still hasn't like he said what he said during the boxing thing, but he still looks at Hilo like, you know, you're one of the Adama boys. You got indoctrinated into the Adama boys. This is the voice he uses when you're his
Yeah,
son.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna call you Zach by accident a few times. Don't mind it. Your new name is Zach
I
Hilo.
keep forgetting your name. It's Kyle. Kyle. It's Carl. It's Zach now. It's going to call you
Zach.
Zach.
Your
You're the
name is
Adama.
Zach Adama. Agathon is out. Adama's in.
Agathon's out. Adama's
in
close
fact,
enough to Agathon.
can you wear his uniform?
And call me Saul. I know that my XO's name is Saul, but I'm the drill man
Can
now.
you call me daddy?
Call me Zaddy. And
Yeah.
so Hilo like goes up, and then Adama's like, and Rosalind's like, okay, yeah, fair. I just hope that the trust that you've put in your wife and the trust that you've put in her too, Bill, is enough. And ultimately, it's like decidedly enough. Her
Oh,
whole
absolutely.
plan, she wakes up on the base star, Caprica 6 is there, and she's like, yo, your baby is sick. We've got her though. Do you want to check in on her? And Athena's like, yeah, boo, why do you think I'm here? And so like Athena is very locked in, and she is so lucky that Caprica 6 was there to be her greeting Cylon when she woke up.
Yeah, and I do think to your point, this is a scene where all the characters I think are functioning within sort of like their own behaviors. Like I think Roslyn feels incredibly remorseful now that her entire plot has gotten outed. And I think the reason why she holds reservations is because she knows, like, oh, there's a chance Athena is so pissed off at me specifically that she is going to spurn all of us and say, no, no, no. She's going to get turned. This was the thing to send her over to the other side. But I don't know. I always, as I talked about last week, I kind of always had faith in Athena, like Carl slash Zach, just because, like, she has already done so much to this point against her own
Athena's the
people.
best. Athena's the
Athena's
fracking best.
well,
This
here's
rewatch has really clarified for me that like Athena rules.
well, here's a hot take, Josh.
Yeah.
Athena rocks. I totally agree. Boomer sucks.
It's not a hot take. You're just arriving at it.
Boomer
I think
really
that is
sucks.
I think that is a very fair take. In fact, one of my original takes for a long time has been like Athena, like what we gain with Athena, we really lose with the characterization of Boomer.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
I think that like I can then sort of like now like bend my perspective enough to say that like it's sort of not totally dissimilar to what I used to say about Jack and Sawyer on Lost, right? Where Jack is an asshole disguised as a hero and
Yeah.
Sawyer is a hero disguised as an asshole. It's not exactly true. It's Boomer is a human on her way to becoming a Cylon, and Athena is a Cylon on her way to becoming a human, which is not also entirely accurate, but I think you get the point that like
Yeah.
Athena will be the one of those models that gets like really accepted for what she is by the fleet, or at least by many of the fleet that matters, though she probably won't always be fully accepted by the fleet because of what she is and where she came from. Boomer, where she came from, makes her an outlier as well, but everything that she's known about humanity and all of the loved ones, like it's been such a foul experience for her that it would make sense for her to like sour on the whole thing and go full Cylon. The issue, even with that, I think like, I don't even want to call that a charitable read. I think it's a fair read
Yeah.
of like that drifting dynamic
They're
between the two of
two
them,
ships passing in the night.
which I like a lot. But we just have not spent enough time with Boomer on the other side of it.
That's it. Yes, we
That I
got.
think like that's what makes it jarring is we haven't spent enough time with Boomer. We've gone all in on Athena is our Grace Park now, right? Look at me. I'm the Grace Park now. Like that's the one. She's the captain. And then Boomer has kind of just like sort of fallen by the wayside as a result. So that when she does show up and she acts like this, it's jarring. But now we have it established here. And like, yes, she's going to get her neck snapped in a little while, but like, that's like, she's on board a base star. So she probably just like woke up down the hall.
Yeah.
Now we have it established as Boomer. And I'm glad that we're going to taking the space to like have this conversation, because I think as we have moments with her coming up in the future, which we certainly will, I won't say when or how many, we can take this into account. And see like, does her characterization change from where we're leaving her right now? Will we get more of her that will help develop this? Who's to say? But I think that this is where she's at. I think that this is the journey she's presently on. I just think that the big piece of it is like the destination doesn't matter if you're not involved in the journey. And I don't think that we're involved in Boomer's journey in a close enough way for this to like land with the full authority it's meant to land with.
I could not agree more, because I was thinking through this, and there are moments like I am not surprised by the conclusion she comes to, which is like, I tried the experiment on New Caprica and it ultimately failed. Humans and Cylons can't exist together. We saw those scenes with like her when Callie was detained, of her trying to like get in good with someone that she was familiar with, only to realize you cannot go back to before. But to your point, it feels like we have to do so much work on the scratch paper to get ourselves to that logical conclusion, to the point that Boomer does, as opposed to the other side of things, where obviously we're investing so much more mental space. Like, we've spent enough time with the Cylons, especially in a post-New Caprica world, and we've been giving Boomer the short shrift where, again, this is not an out-of-character revelation that she comes to, but it feels a little unearned, because it's like, oh, there's so much more we could build out from this. Now, maybe to your point, this is not an end point of her arc, but maybe a starting one, or almost a check-in to be like, okay, let's explore this, because the Boomer that we met at the end of season 2, I was really excited about. And I'm excited that that spirit still lives on in the form of Caprica 6, who still seems to have a little bit of hope of like, no. Humans and Cylons, like, this baby is a representation of the fact that humans and Cylons can coexist together. It just, to me, to your point, does serve as a representation of how Boomer herself has kind of felt left by the wayside in favor of like the new puppy that was Athena.
Yeah, I think that that's fair. I share that view. I have held that view for a very long time. I don't think that what you're saying is a hot take unless I'm also possessing a hot take. I think that this is a fair take. I think like this is probably like the right moment for it to manifest for you, because I felt it on this watch as well. Okay. So let's go back to Algae Planet. Let's go and hang out with Lee and Sam and Matthias and our favorite, Jean Barrelet. Do a Barrelet.
Jean Barrelet was one of the rare people to survive this episode, because one of Anders' other cronies does not.
Yeah. R.I.P. Anders' crony.
I think it was like Cyrax or something.
Isn't that a Mortal Kombat character?
Yeah, they ripped his spine out. It was a fatality.
So. Fatality. Would have preferred. I mean, over at the base star, we get a babality as Athena takes the baby back from the Cylons. Did you never do the babalities? Babalities were very fun.
I've only seen the babalities. I've never attempted a babality.
Yeah, very, very good stuff. Okay, so we're going to see Dee make her attempt to rescue Starbuck. Her fellow soldier gets shot. So good job, Lee, on this rescue mission. Baltar and Deanna show up. Head 6 shows up as well. Tells Baltar, like, by the way, boo, you're the chosen one, not her. And he's like, lady, I know. Come on.
Come on.
obviously.
I knew I was born the chosen one. I couldn't draw novas like Starbuck can, but I
Yeah.
was always the chosen one, which
Yeah.
also makes it very interesting in that Deanna was able to see the final five and Baltar was deprived of that opportunity. There's still more time for him, it
Plenty more
seems.
time. We've got, a full season and a half plus some movies. We'll see what we can figure out. So we're shooting Cylons.
Yeah,
Cool action scene.
we're blowing stuff out. They go like they really transform from like tower defense mode to more so on the attack instead. They lay this like kind of guerrilla siege where they're just like blowing stuff up, and they're able to get some Centurions down and some shoot back. There really isn't like a lot of casualties on the human side, so I
Not a ton.
suppose they were
Yeah.
able to be successful.
Good job. D is gonna find Starbuck, and Starbuck's like, "Wow, you came to save me." He's like, "Yeah, my husband ordered me to risk my life to save you, so I've come to bring Starbuck back to Apollo."
Ugh.
Shady.
Deservedly so. Even though, again,
Deservedly
as
so.
as you would point out from a couple episodes ago, like she kind of knows the situation she found herself in, but she still has a right to feel a certain way.
Yeah, she's like one of her guys got shot and killed on the way here. Like that could have been her.
Yeah, exactly. Like if she died, that would have been even worse. I know that Anders told Lee, like, if Kara doesn't come back, I'm gonna kill you myself. I think if Dee did not come back, Lee would be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna sacrifice
Bye.
myself to the Centurions. Hope there's no goo pod for me.
Yeah, I'm just gonna stay here on the supernova planet. Okay, on the base star, we see Athena go to Hera, who is with Boomer. Boomer is so far away from her humanity that she never thought to check Hera's stomach, or like I'm sure she felt Hera's stomach at some point, but
Hmm.
made nothing of her belly being hard as a rock.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's where the wiring is, of course. Though, to be fair, this is a half Cylon, half human hybrid. Is
Yes.
there a chance that, like, there could have been something mechanical down there and not exactly fleshy, spongy stuff?
Totally. Yeah, we don't know what it looks like inside there. We haven't had like Doc Cottle take a look. Hopefully, we get that pretty soon.
Yeah, though Doc Cottle, I mean, it seems like Doc Cottle really is possessing the doctor side of things by just being able to treat anything and everything under the
Yeah.
sun. I don't know if he's a pediatrician, though.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of doctor Doc
He needs a
Cottle is.
mechanic. We need
Yeah.
Tyrell to get in there.
Turns out he's just like a doctor of philosophy, and he's like, "Is there a
Exactly.
doctor here?" It's like, "Yeah, but okay, come on." It's like, "Ah, shit."
I got my doctorate in African dance, and now
Yeah,
I'm patching up all these war wounds. What the
yeah.
hell?
This is not what he went to evil doctor school for 7 frickin' years. Frickin' years. Doc Cottle as Doc Evil, pretty good.
Oh, you know what? I would love that.
Not bad. So Boomer's like, you know what? Maybe Cavill's right. Maybe we weren't supposed to have children to begin with. Maybe I'm supposed to break this baby's neck. And would you believe it that it's Caprica 6 who stops a baby from getting their neck snapped?
I know. Look at this. Look how far she's come.
But then she snaps a neck because she's like, it's that's way too tempting to not snap
Yeah.
Boomer's neck right now. So
Yeah, I have a quota that I need to fill at this point, but I really enjoy this, and I'm really excited with the retirement of the Deanna line because I talked about it before. This has really been a nothing burger season for Trisha Helfer, and it
Yep.
feels like finally, especially if we're getting into a scenario next episode where it is going to be Baltar, Caprica 6, and Head 6 in the brig together. Like, I would love it's just a bottle episode next week with these three because there's got to be so much stuff that they need to hash out, and it truly does feel like she kind of is finally grabbing the story again by the throat and able to take charge of it after being kind of shirked as the main Cylon for the entire season.
Back on the Raptor, where Starbuck has been injured and she needs to get fixed up, and Dee needs to fix up the Raptor as well. They start getting into it. Lee's too honorable to cheat, Starbuck tells Dee. And Dee says, yeah, unlike you. And Starbuck's like, yeah. And she starts to pass out. And Dee slaps Starbuck. You got to stay awake.
Yeah, and there is one of the deleted scenes this week is an extended version of it. So we'll bring it in here. And Dee adds insult to injury because after she slaps her, she just dresses down her woe is me routine. Where
What
she's
does she
like,
say?
she says, you're always making things about yourself. The truth is that the Admiral sees something in you he loves you. That means you're not a victim of circumstance. She says quite literally, you're in charge of your life. You make your own decisions. So if you're fracking around with my husband, it's not because of your fracked up childhood or society or the God's damned weather. It's because you decided to do it.
Mm. And
So
what do
it's
you
like,
think of that? Is she right?
I mean, listen, of course, I think some of the past, circumstances that we have experienced inform the decisions we make in the present. We don't really know that much about Starbuck's parents. It could be a matter of like if there was infidelity there, or if it wasn't exactly a loving marriage. Maybe she does not have the most pristine picture of love. At the same time, the most aggravating Starbuck is the one that just kind of wallows in her own self-misery and is just
Yes.
like, oh God, I'm just the worst. I can't do it. I can't help it. It's who I am. And I love Dee quite literally slapping some sense at her to be like, no, you're in control of your own
Yeah.
actions. You're not a Cylon. You can do this. And which will be interesting given the final point of the episode, which
Sure.
is maybe Kara coming to the realization of, oh, is there a part of my life that is indeed plotted out? But at least in this moment, Dee is giving her the revelation she needs, which is like, yeah, like there's no amount of psychology that leads you to excuse what you're trying to pull off right now. So stop trying to excuse it all away, but also stop trying to like take it all on yourself by being like, yup, I guess I'm just this fracked up person. You made yourself this fracked up person, and you can unfrack yourself if you want to.
Chief gets ordered. Okay, we got to blow up the temple because there's too many Cylons, so let's blow up the temple. Lee throws a grenade at Sam and says, "It's hot." And I love the world where Sam's like, "It's what?" Yeah. Do you think? Lee was just like, "It's hot." Like, did he like try to whisper it so Sam wouldn't like fully hear
or he
it?
like play that game of hot potato where he like pulls it out and like purposely counts down to 1 second. This is like, "Oh, Sam, heads up."
Yep. So Sam, they alley-oop a little pyramid maneuver, I believe, to the Cylons. Chief evacuates the temple. He spools out the wire. He brings the wiring down to Lee, and then says, "Can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it, Captain. I can't do it, Major." He won't blow up the temple, Mike.
Well, he wasn't going to anyway, because it seems like, at least from what the edit is indicating to us, that Baltar and Deanna, and also apparently they brought in like
they brought a Cavill with them,
and a Indiana Jones action figure Cavill, where Dean Stockwell is like wearing like the little wide brimmed hat that he wore back when we discovered that he was a Cylon.
Dean Norris would have been a sick Cylon, though.
Oh my God, he would have been freaking incredible.
Yeah.
Imagine like be like sitting on the toilet realizing that he was a Cylon the entire time. But they have already started to disarm the bomb. And so, at least from the way it was timed out, it was never exactly going to completely work. But yeah, Tyrell is a little frozen right now. There is something still, even though he was not able to solve what the Eye of Jupiter was in the moment, there was still something about the temple that was keeping a hold on him that did not allow him to push that button after he did a little like Jack in the Box crank.
Yeah. A Jack in the Box crank. Is that when you are okay? No, you're very sad at a Jack in the Box.
Oh yeah.
Feeling another kind of way.
No, it's where you have to keep eating Jack in the Box to keep your heart rate up, or else you die.
Got it. Oh yeah, it's a Jason Statham movie. Yeah, Jack in the Box crank is the tie-in. It was just a commercial for the Super Bowl, folks. Well, what are you thinking here? Chief was called to the temple. He found the temple. He cannot destroy the temple. You've had some thoughts about Chief as well. Just talk to me. Talk me through everything that you're feeling with Chief.
All right, so I'm going to put the cart before the horse a little bit here, Josh. Yep. And just let's take a brief dip into the Opera House.
Yes.
Can you confirm or deny for me that, look, we purposely, these 5 figures are washed out.
Yep.
Can you confirm, do you know, is this a Christian Shepherd, end of a drift situation? Are the people under those robes the same actors as who actually plays the final
idea. No idea.
Okay, because I had a big theory. Because look, I wasn't able to see much.
I will say, just to be like totally transparent as well, that if the answer to that was yes, I would say no idea, no clue. Because I would just live in the speculation, but my sincere answer is no idea, no clue. But the question is that actually a sincere answer, or is this a triple bluff at this point? Exactly. But no idea, no clue.
You got my mind in a tizzy because I did see two faces under those hoods in the one of the shots that was staged, and
Okay.
one of them was like sort of from the side. There
Back at the
might be
Opera House
someone
or in this episode?
in the Opera House,
Got it.
yes. And so there might be one that I'll get into a little bit later, but I saw somebody who kind of looked like a clean-shaven Aaron Douglas.
Okay.
And so I think there is good reason to believe I'm pretty all in on Chief being a Cylon at this
Yeah.
point. That the Cylon frog god was setting up a Mr. and Mrs. Smith scenario between Boomer and Tyrell of like, you love each other, but you don't realize the other one is a Cylon.
Yeah.
Because I think as well, like, yeah, him being drawn to the temple, his reticence to blow it up, I don't think it's because of his penance for dancing around with Noonie magazines to give a big FU to his parents. I
Uh-huh.
think it was something compelling him to like, no, this place is important. You can't blow it up before this particular instance happens, or you can't blow it up. You don't want to kill Gaius Baltar because he's the chosen one. He
Right.
plays a very important role here. So yeah, I'm getting major red flags at this point from Chief Tyrell as a Cylon.
So do you like that? Like, are you enjoying that? I mean, this is something that you've been tracking for a long time. I feel like you've been saying at least all season long that you think that Chief is a Cylon. I forget exactly what your final 5 predictions were. Do you remember them offhand?
Not a clue. So maybe we'll get that written down for next week because I imagine we'll do a bit of a check-in with it again. I know it was talked about at the end of season 2 because we thought it'd be a fun little talk about that triple fake out, right? Of Cavill being like, I know you're not a Cylon because I don't see you at the meetings, only for it to be proven that he's a Cylon. And if Tyrell himself was also a Cylon, and it's like, yeah, we don't see you at the meetings because I don't know that you're a Cylon because you're a member of the Final 5. I think that would be really fun. I still would question like the idea of having him and Boomer together to start the series, but maybe that does show that like even when they don't know they're Cylons, they have a natural attraction to each other. So I think it'd be really interesting, especially if, like, from the Revolution perspective. It just goes to show how far someone would go when they don't necessarily know their own programming. Though, again, I feel like that character has also been kind of covered with Athena at the same time, too.
What are some of the explanations for Chief's behavior in this episode and the last episode of him being drawn to the temple and being unable to cause harm to it, if not him being a Cylon? Do you have any?
I mean, listen, we'll certainly talk at the end about, like, if Kara Thrace is a prophet, you know, could this be a Jacob Man in Black scenario where there actually are sort of, like, battles between Cylon Frog God and the gods themselves? And it's like, well, you're my candidate, so I have to keep you safe right now, and please don't destroy the temple. I could see a territory where it goes down that, but again, it feels like we're already going down that path with Starbuck that it wouldn't make much sense to me to also have Tyrell there as well, unless they're trying to cover their bases and have as many candidates as possible.
So the star goes supernova, and Chief's like, hey, look, that's the eye of Jupiter.
Yeah, it was interesting that I thought for a second, like, I was like Baltar when they had, again, to point out Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Like, the light filters through the stained glass and shines upon this one painted symbol on the ground. It's like, that's it? That's the eye of Jupiter? But no, it was the Nova the enther time. Big Carl Sagan fans on BSG.
So the Nova the entire time. Inside the temple, Cavill is going to try and shoot Deanna. Baltar shoots Cavill instead, and Deanna experiences a vision. She sees 5 figures bathed in light. She looks at all of them in awe. She gets to the 5th one, and when she does, she says, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. And Baltar can only watch this happen. He cannot see the vision himself.
She was on the other foot there, Mr. Oh, I have disembodied conversations that people try to pick up on the other side of.
Yep. He's not able to see this. She starts to like glitch out and she dies from the experience.
Yeah, like her eyes go white. I mean, she does bring this up while they're on the cliff top, right? Of like, I'm scared to look in the face of God because it's assumed that the hybrid was kind of able to do that. And like the curse of knowing too much is that you are essentially go insane.
This is what it turns you into a freaking freak. And so she glitches out and she explodes, in her brain at the very least, and we'll catch back up
Yeah,
with
her
her on the
nose
space
starts
bar.
bleeding. I mean, she is sort of like traveling through space and time.
But unpack this scene for me. So you don't love that we're like, oh, who was like this is I mean, I think that this is some of this to me is like, yes, it's a 2000s show that you don't have the same nostalgia for, because I think we would give a
Yeah.
pass to this on Lost for sure. But like without that like rooting interest of like younger Mike being like, oh, but this was fun, like I think that there's
Yeah.
probably going to be some degree to which this is a little annoying. The whatever frustrations you have, if you want to vent any of them, feel free. But any analysis that you have here, like anything that you want to unpack from Deanna's experience, I think specifically the fifth one and the very sincere, and almost like reverential, like I'm so sorry, I had no idea. What are you getting from all of this?
I would imagine then that it is a main character. And it's interesting to hear her like apologize for it, because that seems to imply that like she wrote them off beforehand, unless it's like Baltar and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you, and I'm probably not going to be able to tell you now because I'm going to be rendered in a catatonic state and then essentially taken offline." And that's the tough thing as well, is that as I imagine we are sunsetting this character, I'm glad. I was surprisingly happy we had Lucy Lawless around for like such a notable arc, but she is still a guest star or recurring cast member at the end of the day. There could be something like in the last season where, a la Lost, they bring back a bunch of characters and maybe someone decides to bring Deanna back online to figure out the identity of the final five. But I imagine by and large, this is going to be her retirement from the show. And
Yeah.
so it's tough for me to parse out that line because, like, I don't really know the relationships that she has. The only other thing I could feasibly think of is that number 6 is a member of the final 5.
Mm.
That it's like, oh, a lot of this latter part of the season so far has been about her disregarding Caprica 6, leaving her out of plans, pushing her out of the thruple. And so now it's like, oh, no, you're much more important than I thought you were. Oof, that's egg on my face. But then I don't know how to feel about that, because I kind of like the idea of 5 new faces, quote unquote, even if they're old faces on the Cylons. And to have one of them kind of double dipping would feel a bit like cheating.
So what do you want?
I want, I don't know if I want a new character, but I kind of want like Starbuck,
Yeah.
like I will say the person that I saw was a little bit on the shorter side, and Katie Sackhoff is a bit of a short queen. So I was thinking like, okay, maybe it is Kara Threads. I mean, obviously we're going to have this big cliffhanger leading out of this of like, does she have a larger purpose? Though now I'm sort of doing the double speak of, okay, they want us to believe this, and therefore that's not the case, because why would they lay it out this early on? But I would hope it's a character that she did have a meaningful interaction with, to not make it feel like, okay, we just threw this in to have a moment where the audience is on the edge of their seat and then they're deprived of the opportunity to see it. Like, I think I'm hoping I'm not hanging my hat too much on this idea of, oh, Deanna clearly recognized the person, and so therefore, like, I have to go through this laundry list and short list who I think it is, and rather than, oh no, it's just somebody random, and she made that remark because even though she didn't have a relationship with them. So I'm hoping it's a familiar person.
Okay, cool. On the Big G, we got about an hour to get away from here before the supernova destroys us. Oh, wait, first they arrested Gaius Baltar. Gaius Baltar,
Oh,
welcome
a
back.
great moment from Tyrell where,
Super satisfying. Yeah.
and this is after Baltar does
And they also
kill
bring him
Adventure
back
Pack.
on board the Big G in a body bag,
Yeah,
just
which
like,
is wild to me. I'm
yeah,
like, is he dead? No, but he may have asphyxiated because we did put him in a body bag. Though maybe that's
yeah.
all they had on Algae Planet. But yeah, Tyrell does have really badass move, right? Where he does his like Will Smith in Independence Day. Welcome
Welcome to
back, Mr.
Earth.
President.
Welcome to
And
Algae Planet. Yeah.
and just knocks him out in the process. So yeah, and so Baltar is left with a lot of egg on his face here, considering that he is behind enemy lines. We saw that last week, that like clearly he is not welcome back on the Big G. Now he is a prisoner, and this path that he possibly burned a lot of bridges with the Cylons over, which is like, I need to find out if I'm a Cylon, I need to find out who the final 5 is, has completely run dry at
Yeah.
this point. It blew up. And
Yeah.
so he is up a hell of a creek without a paddle.
Yeah. Okay, and then we get some reunions. Chief and Sam and Starbuck, they hug it out. Lee and Dee, they hug it out, and they're both like, Lee and Starbuck sort of like forlongingly looking at each other. Really, Lee looking at Starbuck more than Starbuck looking at Lee.
I mean, the weird thing it's just so strange to me that in that conversation with Dee, Starbuck is like, I love Sam and I hate Sam. It's like, I thought she was done with Sam.
Yeah.
I really did. I thought she had felt that like it was more of either a flash in the pan thing. But I can't help but think that because, again, so much of the relationship between Anders and Starbuck has not been shown on the show. It's been the dalliance they had on Caprica off screen, and it's the marriage they had on New Caprica off screen. So forgive me if I don't exactly believe that she loves him the way that she's claiming. For what it's worth, the way that Katie Sackhoff, like her body language when hugging with Sam, it does feel like there is some care there. So I guess they're back on board with each other, but I don't know. It feels like an unfortunate settling back to the status quo for two relationships that felt like they were more so conveniences over anything.
Caprica 6 is revealed to be aboard the Big G. Arrest this woman.
I love it. I am so
It's great. It's
excited
great. It's
this.
good to have her here. Yeah, for sure.
Again, like I said before, very good to finally have Trisha Helfer back in the spotlight. She's going to be a big person of interest. It'll be interesting to see, like, how does her path diverge from Athena? Because it's clear that she wants to at least cooperate with humanity a little bit, and maybe the Athena story will help pave the way for that. But will she go as far as Athena did? How much will she still hold fast to what's going on with the Cylons? Will we see what's going on with the Cylons now that Baltar, who was sort of like one of our main character anchors,
he was our eyes,
yeah. Like, I would not be surprised if we see the Cylons disappear for a few episodes, just because it's kind of a point where, like, who's over there?
Right.
Boomer at this point in terms of characters we actually have stakes in. So I wouldn't be surprised if, especially now that it's been set up that humanity knows the next point to go to and the Cylons don't, that like they kind of get out of the way for a couple of episodes and then they'll just appear out of nowhere once more. Maybe they'll try to tail the Big G, maybe it's a matter of something that was alleged back in season 2, Josh, of like, is there a tracker on Caprica 6? And so maybe it doesn't matter if they figured out the Eye of Jupiter or not. Maybe they're going to be able to follow her to the 13,000 light years away, wherever they're going.
Right. That's what they figure out in one of the 3 final scenes, that there was another supernova event 13,000 light years away in the Ionian Nebula. And this was 4,000 years ago, right around the time that the 13th tribe left Kobol for Earth. So Adama thinks this is a road sign. That's what the Eye of Jupiter was. So let's go there next.
Yep. And so, again, we leave this episode at least with like a couple of pieces being moved forward on the board, right? Like, we have a next destination. Finally, after the longest time of me being like, we went to Kobol and they literally said, we know the destination of how to get to Earth. Now at least we're making some meaningful progress. I'm not holding my breath and thinking with 8 episodes left of this season that we are going to be making meaningful progress in the next few episodes to get to that place, especially since it's 13,000 light years away. But I think it sets a nice goalpost for the finale, if anything.
Hilo goes to Starbuck and says, hey, you got any photos?
Hey, remember when we had a relationship in the beginning of season 2? Remember we
I like their dynamic here.
It's a nice reminder of like that really interesting part. Honestly, one of the most interesting parts of the stuff on Caprica, when like they stopped in on Starbuck's old place and she had the poetry written on the walls, and she also had some Desmond-esque scrawlings on the wall too. And Hilo was able to really piece this together after a couple of years.
Carl Agathon, unlike Mike Bloom, has a terrific memory and an ability to recognize artwork. Put a Blu-ray cover in front of Carl Agathon, he's telling you everybody.
First he'd say, what's a Blu-ray? There's no cover, there's no corners on this. But he does recognize the jawbreaker-like shape that Starbuck painted on the wall back in the day. As it was the Nova, the same Nova that is going to guide them to where they go next. That happened.
She's been doodling this ever since she was a child, apparently. And Leo Ben said, you've got a destiny, Starbuck. It's already been written, and now Starbuck may be beginning to buy the hype a little bit. What are you reading into all of this?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's interesting that, like Tyrell, she is one of the more devout main characters on the humanities side. That, again, she was someone who last week was like, Lee, because we got married under the eyes of the gods, as much as I want to be with you, I can't right now. Like, she has always kind of shown those cards, especially she's talking about the conversation they had in, or no, she's not talking about the conversation they had in Flesh and Bone. They're talking about the more salacious conversations, right? Like from the beginning of this season. But
Yeah.
the first time the two came into contact with each other in Flesh and Bone, she showcased that she had more of this devout side to her. And so I think it also would be a nice kind of like shuffling off of that storyline from Laura Roslin. Like, we remember all of that with the scrolls in the first season, right? Of like, oh, she's the leader that's destined to take us to the promised land, but she'll die in the process. I feel like in getting rid of Laura Roslin's cancer, we kind of have like yada yada past that. And so now we're going to bring a new chosen one into focus. And it's also interesting in that it feels like we're kind of playing a little bit of a cup and ball game with the chosen one as well. Like, is Gaius Baltar the Cylon chosen one? Is Kara Thrace the human chosen one? Is it neither? Is it both? Are they going to be set up sort of like, Jack and the Man in Black as like the next two oppositional equals? I think it's an interesting place to take the character because also, admittedly, because I'm so incredibly frustrated with what they're doing with Kara from like a character perspective and a relationship perspective, this is at least a new place to take
Yeah.
her. That
Sure.
doesn't feel like we're just going to be completely watching this self-destructive character like a supernova make mistakes episode after episode, which is kind of what she's been doing for the better part of season 3 since New Caprica. This is a new place to take it, which makes me very excited, though holding a little bit of caution as to like, all right, do we really want to do like Starbuck as the Messiah storyline here?
Yeah. We'll see. Final scene of the episode. Cavill disenfranchises all the Deannas. He turns them off. He
Discontinues
says
the model. She's fired.
he says your model is flawed. I don't even like your little D hat. And so he closes down all the Deannas after Deanna's like, oh, but I saw the final 5. I know what they look like. And
He's
Cal's
like, nah, we'll find that's more of a final season thing.
yeah,
I'm
Cal was like,
sorry.
oh, it's only season 3, episode 12. We can't do that right now. And so he pulls the plug and she goes dark and all the Deannas go dark. And that's the end of the episode. And I love this scene. I think about this scene a lot. I think Lucy Lawless is so good in this episode. I think Dean Stockwell is so good in this scene. I just think this is like some man of faith, man of science stuff. And like stone cold man of science wins in this moment.
Yeah.
Cylon of science.
And also the idea, again, that this is always going to be a tragedy befitting of her. And this is also like some of the lessons that come out of Greek myths, right? Like the myth of Cassandra of, those that are destined to know more than others are often the ones that are pushed out by those societies. That essentially the reading that Cavill gives her before he unplugs her is basically like, you have put the Cylons in danger by essentially going off and pursuing your own agenda. And that was certainly something intriguing as well, even outside of the mythologizing of who the final 5 are, which is like this idea of Deanna really coming out of nowhere to be like, yeah, but I want to do this other thing now. And it goes to show and is a firm reminder of like, nope, the Cylons by and large are a group that builds by consensus and they try to squash any sort of independence that doesn't fit in with their uniformity, to the point where the information about the final 5, like, it's not like Cavill's saying, oh, could you whisper it to me before you go? He doesn't necessarily care because, again, the Cylons are focused on a completely different thing at this moment, which is we just need to find Earth. I don't give a lick who the final 5 are. I'll meet them when I'm dead. But for right now, I need to pursue what we're all after, which is going to Earth. And the fact that Deanna strayed so far from this, I wasn't surprised by it. And it was like a stark reminder of what the Cylons are pursuing and how that juxtaposes from some of these errant Cylons that try to speak up with their
Aaron
own information.
Cylons? Yeah.
Oh, could be. We haven't seen him for a while.
Been a minute. Okay, Mike, let's conclude with our top and bottom 5. We've got some additional business here that we need to take care of. I've got 3 MVPs. You've got 3 LVPs to deliver. Both of us given an MVP point to Athena, I think. Athena, so far, like, running away with it now. She is going to be the season 3 MVP by 3 points by the end of our rankings, just to spoil it today. She has 8. Her next closest is going to be Chief, who's not scoring an MVP point this week. So Athena, She got her kid back. This has been the whole thing.
I told you she got her baby back ribs and
And
all
she did
of
it
her
like
as
that.
well.
She wasted no time.
She went behind enemy lines. And granted, like, the jig was up pretty much immediately, though it feels like, to her point, like, it seems like her daughter is actually in some medical trouble. It's not like she faked this entire blocked
I have a
intestine.
tummy ache. I gotta come home from school. No, like she's like not doing well. She's sick.
Yeah, exactly. No, she's not like Ferris Buellering it right now. But I do
Bueller?
think that the fact that, again,
Boomer.
she was able to go in there, that she was able to sort of defy some of the straw man arguments that Roslyn was putting out there of like, she might not be given a choice, she might defect back. She didn't blink an eye. Like, she did not think 1
Jupiter.
ounce about like, exactly. She did not think 1 iota of, oh, well, Laura Roslyn lied to me, so maybe I should be back with the Cylons. I really think the character has crossed that Rubicon and there is no coming back from that. I actually think you could look back on the moment where she actually shot Deanna down on New Caprica as kind of a representation of that. That she's like, no, I'm with humanity first and foremost.
Yo,
And
she
so,
gave the gun over. Like she shot like the doofuses on Kobol, and she gave the gun to Bill, and she's like, "I could have shot you. I could have done this, but I'm not because I'm with you now." And like she's been with them. You
yeah,
know?
exactly. And so
What
she
more do you need to like believe Athena? Like I
and not
think.
only that, she brings back the MacGuffin, right?
Are you
Like,
gonna
this is
feel like? Is this gonna feel like a spoiler if I say like believe Athena? Like let's believe what
yeah.
she's been showing us. Like Athena is one of us.
But I do think that despite the Eye of Jupiter being the MacGuffin of this two-parter, she brings back arguably the MacGuffin in the form
Of
of
the
Hera.
show, yeah, like
And is able to
everyone's like
bring her
our
back
hopes
over
depend on Hera. So like Hera is like the big nuclear football, at least right now.
to the point where I would say if somehow 8 episodes from now, Athena is not the MVP of the season in terms of points, I'm still going to give the title to her. Because, like, this is one of the biggest plot elements that, to your point, people have been fighting over for the better part of a season and a half. And she got it back behind enemy lines. That's extremely commendable.
I'm giving another point to Hilo, the dad in the equation here, because he sends her out there and he doesn't like doing it. And then I love how he tells Rosalind off. I think it's, and then how he comes to Starbuck at the end. I think this is a great episode from a guy, Carl.
Yeah, he was able to put a lot together. Now, here's the question is like, what does he do with this information? Because remember, Adama is not necessarily the most faith-based guy. You know, when he saw the coincidence of the Nova, he was sort of like, I'm not entirely sure. Is he going to go to him with this information to be like, by the way, I kind of think your adopted daughter might be a prophet.
Yeah.
So make of that what you will. Is he going to try to broach it with somebody else? Like, is he going, I mean, like him and Starbuck, I think, are going to try to work together to piece this out. The question is how many people are going to be brought in on this? And like, because I don't think Starbuck wants people treating her that way. I don't think people want, sort of like what happened after Order of the Phoenix with Harry Potter. Like, I don't think she wants people looking at her sideways as the chosen one and to treat her very special. So I'll be very intrigued to see how she and Hilo approach this plot point moving forward.
Okay, final point from you, going to Duala.
It's got to go to D. Like, talk about having to really swallow everything that's been fed to you. And also the fact that, like, we have not seen Duala really do anything mechanical. And she gets the raptor off the ground. Like, after Starbuck eviscerates her hands to the point where she has, like, little seal paws at the end of it, which really Starbuck is just, like, taking a beating the entirety of the series. Like, remember, she broke her leg when she
That's how
crashed.
Starbuck rolls. Starbuck's role is to be like a full contact sport player. You know, like she's all here for like full tackles.
Yeah, but D is able to get everything off the ground, and I think this is when I bring a bit of the deleted scenes in here, if you will, as well. And like, she absolutely tells it to Starbuck and says, like, stop wallowing in your self-appointed misery. So it's a very good episode for D. And look, for what it's worth, it does seem like Lee is now committed now that he feels like that Starbuck path has once again hit a dead end. So it's a net win for her, I suppose.
My final MVP point goes to Adama. I think Big Bill with the big threat at the start of the episode is pretty dope. It worked. You got him out of there. Bottom fives. We give points to Athena. You take a point away from Booma.
Yeah,
for all the reasons we've established, I think.
Exactly. Quotation, whatever you want to say. Just copy what we said about half an hour ago about how this is maybe a representation of not only how far the Boomer character has fallen, but also like the lack of airtime.
The characterization has been wanting, I think, for sure. Sorry, I'm giving an LVP point to Lee. I think this is like where
Fine.
like Lee just kind of looks like a shitbag in my opinion here. Like Lee would never cheat, but yeah, he's cheating on you. You know, like he is doing it, and also now
And
you
also,
said
and also, he was about to cheat. Well, I guess technically he was more. Yeah, he is cheating, but he was more so like, I'll feel less guilty about myself if I get a divorce. So let's do that, which is like again a
yeah.
bit of a scumbag move.
And then he like hugs her so tight at the end. Like, get your act together, Major,
Mixed signals, boy, baby. Mixed
for sure.
signals.
We're both dinging Deanna. She dies, bro.
Yeah, and for me, it's also like she got what she wanted, but it came at the cost of like being completely decommissioned
Totally
as well.
boxed. Yeah.
Like completely basically being written off the
It's not
show.
great for Deanna. That's bad.
Yeah, it's be careful what you wish for. And
It's like,
also in the
sweet, you got the answers, but we didn't. And also, you're boxed. You've been boxied.
Yeah, exactly. Like much like boxing, kind of written off the show, and it's like,
Yes.
was it all worth it at the end of the day to get that answer at the cost of like basically ending your life and the lives of all of your other co-conspirators?
Your final LVP point goes to the Cylons, which feeds us nicely into the next part of the Cylons versus the fleet. This is a declarative victory for the fleet this week, Mike.
Yeah, that's a reason why I had to make it the Silence. It's because, again, as I mentioned before, they take L's on really every single front. And let's also talk about how big of a decision this final scene was. There are only 12 models of Cylons. 1/12 of them was just completely eradicated. This
Yeah, that's
wasn't like,
bad.
oh, there's one errant Deanna that we're going to take off the board and put in cold storage. They took every single Deanna offline. That's a considerable part of your population. And you're also missing the future of your population as well at the hands of one of the other betrayers. This is very terrible for the
Yeah.
Cylons across the board, to the point where, again, maybe another reason why they're going to disappear for a few episodes is because they kind of like tuck their tail between their legs and go hide for a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. We got to rate the episodes. And we said we were going to rate them last
Ooh.
time after we watched Rapture, which I did. And I stayed steady across the two episodes. I may have ended up being a little bit higher. But I do think, as often happens, talking through the episode and hearing your opinion is the thing that most directly impacts my score at the end of the day. So I'm slightly lower, but I think still pretty high. I gave both of these a 3.8. I think that some of the frustration is incredibly valid on your part. I know a bit more than you do. So some of this is satisfying for me in a way that it might not yet be for you and may never be for you, but is for me. I don't think that it's like of the two parters necessarily I think of the big two parters, this is probably the weaker one that we've encountered so far. But some of the scenes to me remain very iconic. The Cavill Deanna scene is very iconic for me. Deanna seeing the final five, I always think about. So there's a few moments in here that I really like. You could miss me with all of like the love quadrangle stuff. Not my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, is especially the fact that it is like such a focus. Again, I think maybe I'll look back on this with different eyes once I see the end game, much like we talked about with Lost. I think there were certainly times when we got incredibly frustrated there with the love triangle and love quadrangle, though it did certainly help that we were able to see the ending and know, like, all right, Jack and Kate do end up together, so we can withstand a little bit of the pain. Right now, it's all pain for me. So I definitely rate it lower than Eye of Jupiter, which I am keeping it at 3.6 for now. I think I'm going to give it a 3 point. I'll give it a 3.2.
Okay.
I put
3.2 is low. Wow. Oh my gosh.
I put it on the same level as
Mike
Measure of
Bloom.
Salvation, which I think is more of a nothing burger episode, but there's just, I agree, while there is some stuff that is working for me in this episode, there's a good amount of stuff that isn't. And so it's less of a wash for me. Again, I do not want the negatives to outweigh the positives, but there are sort of like some reckoning moments for me within this episode that were like, I don't love the way we settled down with some of these characters and some of these storylines. And so again, this might change even as recent as the end of this season. But listen, I'm tossing this grenade saying it's hot, and those are my takes.
Yeah. Okay. I like your hot takes. I'm a fan of the hot takes.
Oh, thank you.
Mike, before we frack off, anything else from the deleteds, or did we get them?
Yeah, the other one was like an extended version of that first scene with the nuclear standoff, but there really is not anything from the CIC.
Okay, so nothing further, Your Honor, Your Jervis. We get a single jump as the Galactica jumps away from the supernova. We've got 40 jumps series wide. We've got 8 fracks in this episode, 3 from Sam, 2 from Lee, 1 from D, 1 from Buck, 1 from Gaius Baltar as well. 95 fracks in season 3 thus far, 306 fracks series wide. So how about that?
Anything? Yeah, you wondered if we get over to the 300 mark in this two-parter. We indeed did.
We certainly did. Cylon model rankings. Does anything change after this episode? Because I imagine this might be where it does.
Yes, I think I'm going to actually do something predictable, unlike my my ratings of this episode, and I think we're bumping Deanna finally above Brother Cavill here.
Okay, wow, she gets shut down. She gets multiple LVP points, but the good news is she beats Brother Cavill.
Well, I think it's also that, at the time we had rated her, I was like, oh, this is fun to have Lucy Lawless guest for an episode, and she made like an appearance in season 2 after that, but really it was nothing else. But she had a much bigger role in season 3 than I could have ever expected. Yeah. Now, part of it is still to me that it was more so kind of a plot vessel, that it's like we want to introduce this idea of the final 5, and we're going to have a character really go off the deep end to put everything on the line to discover the identities of them, and we're going to ascribe this to Deanna. So it really could have been like, if this had been given to any other Cylon character, it would have bumped them up just due to having more screen time, as opposed to Cavill, who's kind of just been, I don't know, like a duck treading water for the entirety of season 3. After an absolute powerhouse introduction at the end of season 2, he hasn't been really doing that much, especially once we left New Caprica. I still think it puts him above Leoben, Aaron, and Simon, who are just, either nothing burgers or like very bad characters, bad behaving characters, I should say, but he definitely has taken a tumble as well.
Okay, so we've got a shakeup.
We've got a gender divide. It's the ladies on top and the men on the bottom.
All right, so here we are in position with the Cylons, Mike. 6 at number 1, Boomer / Athena at number 2.
You know what, Josh? Let's have some fun with this, because I know this is going to instantly change. Let's make Boomer Athena number 1.
Oh shit, Mike Bloom. Okay, all right. Let's have a great time here on the podcast.
That's the thing.
Let's do all sorts of shit.
This particular list is meant to be a temperature in the moment. Right?
Yes.
And I think the temperature right now, more than halfway through season 3 of BSG, is that I think that Grace Park is now the main Cylon. Yeah. Is that we have seen so much more of Athena in this season than we have of any version of 6. Now, I'm expecting by the end of this, especially now that we have multiple 6s in the brig next episode, that it's going to flip-flop again. But just to have us track, again, my own thinking over the course of the season, I'd be remiss not to put her number 1 at the moment.
All right, so let's do them bottom to top. In the back, Simon at number 7. That's number 4. At 6 is Aaron, number 5. At number 5 is Leoben, number 2. In number 4, it's number 1, Brother Cavill. In number 3, it's number 3. It's Deanna. That's easy. She was the reigning queen.
Threeanna.
She was the reigning queen all series long in the Cylon model rankings. Number 6 is now number 2 as Grace Park. Number 8 goes to the top. Number 1. Very, very exciting.
And that's in spite of Boomer as well.
So in spite of Boomer. That's how much you love Athena. Mike, next week, season 3, episode 13. Taking a break from all your worries. Don't be worried. We're not taking a break.
I know. I was going to say, this is who's on first.
Yes. Taking a break from all your worries is what we did a few weeks ago. We could all stand to take a break from our worries right now, though. So we will be back next week with another episode of Down the Hatch, talking Battlestar Galactica, Season 3, Episode 13. Make sure you're subscribed. Down the Hatch, Battlestar Galactica, wherever you get your podcasts. You want to send in some feedback? We'd love to hear from you. Down the Hatch, RHAP @gmail.com. Hit us up on the socials. I'm at Round Howard. Mike is at a Mike Bloom type. Currently living that Survivor 48 preseason life.
Yeah, my nose is back in the Fijian Isles as I'm revealing everything you need to know about these cast members in podcast form, in written form, in video form. Plenty of stuff to check out over at Parade on RHAP. I've also been doing some Australian Survivor preseason coverage as well. So that's my main gig at the moment as we move into February. You can check out everything I'm doing all over the online webs at a Mike Bloom type.
All right. I'm at Ryan Howard, wherever you can find me, including on the Blue Sky, including right here on Down the Hatch. When we return next time, taking a break from all your worries. Mike, a prediction for next week's episode?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they can't. Like they cannot put this Baltar plot point in a corner. Like I think we are immediately go. They might put the Starbucks stuff in a corner, like maybe tenderfoot around it and not really embrace it. I think we have to have a storyline next episode, chiefly or tierly focused around Baltar being behind bars. Like I would not be surprised if there's frankly a murder attempt on Gaius Baltar and or Caprica 6. Listen, they have a lot of axes to grind against Gaius Baltar. They see him as the president that sold them out to the Cylons. So
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of Baltar content coming next week, which should be very exciting.
Okay, Baltar talk coming next week on Down the Hatch. We'll be here to see it all through. We hope you all will be as well. Thank you to the team behind the curtain, Ben and Brendan, for shipping everything through the pneumatic tubes into your ears here on the podcast. And thank you to all the hatchlings, all the people in the XPSR Discord who are talking about Battlestar Galactica. We've admitted a bunch of new members recently. I'm seeing emails from people who want to come in. We'll get you in there. Just waiting for another batch of people to bring in. But if you want to be part of that Discord community and talk to other people about BSG, send us an email, downthehatch@rhap@gmail.com. It seems like probably like once every 4 weeks or so we're letting new people in. So if you want to get in on that list, send us an email, downthehatch@rhap@gmail.com. We'll toss you into the Discord. We'll toss ourselves out of your podcast feed right now and back into your lives in 1 week's time to talk more BSG. Until then, take care and frack off. Bye.